All right. I think I've done everything I want to share around to all the places. That's what I was like contemplating that there this moon. Welcome back, everyone. Hello, lads. Les is an NB badasses. Back to doing another politics stream. This time, well, actually, all my politics streams are like reading streams, and you notice the content warning is capitalism. I don't. Not that like every single like one of my like essays or my reading streams needs a content warning, but I just always assume that like there needs to be a content warning because otherwise, there'll be times where I'm reading something and I'm like, okay, I have to take a drink because I did not expect to be reading that. I was like, wow, this article went dark really quickly. In some of those cases, I still think I was just like I was lucky. I had some sort of content warning up. This one I figured is going to be a content warning of capitalism, especially knowing of the kind of essays that I read and something like that. There bound to be some like state violence or police brutality at some point in this essay, especially when they're discussing that about like history of work and all that sort of stuff. So if you want to read along, there's the exclamation point reading to get a link to the essay itself. I'm reading from the Anarchist Library. This is by Crimethinc, and you can find it on their website. And it actually says it right here. The source of this is like, oh, hello, Tavi. Hope I'm glad you're not dead. Okay, mostly lurking and heading out soon, but I'm glad you're alive as well, as the wolf is hard to kill. Ugh. Oh, but nice to know that you will be like, heading out soon, and hopefully whatever you're doing on your trip outside, hopefully it will be like perfectly fine. I swear, because right now it's like it's actually nice outside right now, mostly sunny, clear blue skies, and only 80 degrees. Pretty hard to kill, but within city within within city limits, fireworks are evil. Hmm. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's a so noise canceling headphones out or like earplugs, and that will work. And so, it's actually illegal to set up fireworks within city limits of where I live. And you know what? Considering the drought that the West Coast, the Pacific Northwest is having, I think yes, let's keep it to like no fireworks. We already knew what gender reveal parties did last year and causing property damage with all the other effects. Let's just not have any fireworks. Plus, I'm not going to be like, I don't want to celebrate the birth of this nation of the United States of America, or as I call it, the imperialist corporations of white supremacy, because it's the imperialist corporations of white supremacy. There is a long list of terrible things that the U.S., even before it was the U.S., American colonies, has done, has been continuing doing, and are still doing today. And yeah, so it's just like, I'm probably going to like make my profile pic be either the anarchist flag or like the flag of the United States of America burning, as it were, to show it's like, yeah, screw this country, and it's the country of my birthplace, and it's my nationality. So it's just like, yeah, um, yeah. The trick is like, don't expect them in the middle of the day. Yeah, I agree. I try not to like use headphones or earplugs all the time because it's not healthy for my ears to overuse it. That's a good point. And I at work and like all the times, like I have like earbuds whenever at the computer. I don't have speakers. It's for like webcam speakers or something like that. I not the monitors don't even have speakers. I don't have like speakers actually set up on my computer or something like that. Because I find it more because when I'm doing Zoom calls or I'm in Discord voice chats, I always have like headphones in so that like whatever my speakers like put out or whatever I'm listening to, it's not picked up by the microphone. Sometimes what I'm hearing in my earbuds, depending on the earbud styles, does get picked up by the microphone, and I'm sometimes a bit surprised by that. I was like, "Oh, you hear that?" So it's kind of like, okay, make sure I'm watching appropriate content then, if I'm in like a voice call. But anyway, so if you want to look at how to spread a word, the retweet command, that's what I use. I actually picked it up from Hackbolt, an explanation for retweet, and that will be the tweet for the current stream. So the shares far and wide. And yeah, I got nothing, not too much of the preamble, other than the usual of like still raising money for my friends, Joanna and Phoenix. They're not in the emergency situation. Neither of them are in the emergency situation right now, but they still have like, well, Joanna always needs money in order to like live, and so share around her baking bowl, share around her PayPal link if you can, if you can't give. Also, Phoenix says GoFundMe is still up because like she's still they still don't have like SSSI, and they still have their temporary assistance disability program though. That's a good thing, but still costs money to like get vegan Taco Bell or vegan stuff and to eat. So, and without further ado, I'm gonna be reading the Mythology of Work by Crimethinc, subtitle Eight Myths that like keep your eyes on the clock and your nose to the grindstone. That's like, my dad seriously believes this sort of stuff. He when I don't know, struggling at the workplace, at the job I currently have, which actually was when I was in the assembly department. Before I was full time, I was a temporary employee. A lot happened in between. I was a temporary employee, then finally became full time. It's a whole thing. But in that time, even my dad said, Jonathan, if go to the bathroom only on your breaks. And though it's like already he was telling me, and he was emphasizing that like, no, you should not go to the bathroom whenever you need to or want to. No, only go to the bathroom on your breaks to keep the workflow moving. Because yeah, I did work in the assembly line, jet line kind of production, and I was just like, wow. So even of course, my dad internalized this sort of like behavior. So yeah, continuing on by Criming, the Mythology of Work and 8 myths to keep your eyes on the clock and nose in the grindstone. What if nobody worked? Sweatshops would empty out and assembly lines would grind to a halt. At least the ones producing things no one would make voluntarily. Telemarketing would cease. Uh, duplicitous, individuals who only hold sway over others or become because of like wealth and title would have to learn better social skills. Traffic jam would come to an end. So would oil spills. Kind of like the one is like happened off the Gulf of Mexico that was on fire. I swear I didn't know what I was looking at. It's just like this looks like it's out of a movie. Is Leviathan's going to come out of the water there? Is that like a the temporal portal into like the underworld? Is that where the Kraken's going to come out? But then it's just like, and oh hey, Flute Fanatic, eh, reading political theory. The channel description is true. Yes, yes, I am. This is the kind of politics streams that I do. It's similar to like when Lin Wu does. So which you know, because like you also follow Lin Wu, so I don't need to shout her out. But those who have not followed Lynn, will go and like subscribe, follow her channel or subscribe. Subscribe to the YouTube thing, follows the Twitch thing, but you can still subscribe on Twitch. But that in doing so gives you money to the Twitch. It's a thing. But yeah. Yep, there you go. Lynn was awesome. But yeah, it's just I like to like I like to. I do these reading streams more often that like I feel like I should read more of these things, but also it's like I feel like I need to read them out loud in order to retain those information, but actively read. There are times where I'm reading, but I'm not actively reading because my active mind sometimes is just like on a whole nother tangent, thinking about something else entirely different, as it were. Other conversations going to have me inserted into like scenes of a video game or an anime or something else, or my own fan fiction, as it were, with like me and all these other great characters from like these kind of properties that I enjoy, or other fantasies. Leave it at that. Of course, so like, hey, sometimes I'm in. It's that type of reading where it's just like I'm staring at the page for like over like 5 minutes and 10 minutes, and I realize I'm not reading anything like that. So by doing these reading streams, reading out loud, I can at least then retain the information more fully, as well as like give a little commentary on like what I'm reading this for, but also as a service to those, because I understand reading is very hard for a lot of people, which is why should not be a requirement to any communist, socialist, or anarchist do read theory. I think they should consume theory, but there are other ways to consume theory, like audiobooks or someone reading them out loud. And so I'll continue on. Paper money and job applications would be used as a fire starter as people reverted to like barter and sharing. Uh, assume well sharing, yes, barter only if you really need to, because after reading David Graeber's book Debt for 5,000 Years and listening to the audiobook of it, it's kind of like for the most part, especially when we're our own communes or municipalities or with our neighbors, is often is just sharing is caring after all. We don't really do the barter unless we plan to never meet this person and ever again, or just like never interacted with them ever again. That's the only time we would do barter. Kind of like with like other tribes, as it were, or other people passing through. Oh, most of the other times we wouldn't use barter. We use sharing. But so it's kind of like that's only like a tangential point. But anyway, continuing on. Grass and flowers would grow from the cracks in the sidewalks, eventually making a way for fruit trees. Oh, but like a side note, I saw this video of someone like actually doing gardening in like an urban environment through those cracks, not just like grass or flowers or something like that. No, whole heads of lettuce that they are able to grow through. I wish I could like figure out how to find that photo. I think video. It was a video or something like that, and I think it was on Facebook that I found it. But it's like in somewhere in like Southeast Asia or something like that, like Malaysia or anything like that. So it's kind of like the urban gardening is definitely as possible. And the fruit trees, think about that. There are all the cities and like all the cities in like in America, and in like in Seattle, there are a lot of trees around there. Give lush like greenery to the places. There are like a lot of national parks and something like that. In New York City, the Central Park's a big one, but yet all the bushes and those trees that are in the cities or in the central parks or in those national parks or city parks and all those places, they don't grow food. They could easily grow food within their season, but they don't want that because why? Because then, if people can get the free food of the apples from the trees in the cities or in the parks, or blackberries, there are still wild grown blackberries all around, then why would people come to the grocery stores, to Safeway, to Albertsons, to Trader Joe's, to Whole Foods to buy raspberries or apples or peaches or pears? See, they really don't want food security. It's bad for capitalism. It's bad for those business people. Um, but so, which is why those trees are intentionally not to produce fruit or not to produce anything like edible. They can't get away with like blackberries, and I guess it's like they decided like they couldn't consider it a weed, and they'll like also it's the thorns in them as well. So, continuing on. And back to the essay. And we would have, and would we all starve to death? And we would all starve to death. But we're not exactly subsidizing on paperwork. We're not, and performance evaluations, are we? Most of the things we make and do for money are patently irrelevant to our survival, and to what gives life meaning. Besides. This text is a section from like Work, our 378th page analysis of contemporary capitalism. It's also available as a pamphlet, and there's a link to the pamphlet. Oh yeah, someone I was listening to a recent episode of the podcast Mind Skeptical Leftist that my friend Corey Johnson it runs and hosts. And he's also going to be on Social Justice Alchemy tomorrow. SJA Social Justice Alchemy. That's also a podcast I do weekly every Sunday around 2 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. UTC or Greenwich Mean Time, where it's just me and a bunch of like other anarchists and other leftists like sitting around and chat about like whatever comes to mind. And yes, since we're doing tomorrow, it'll be on July 4th, the birth of this of the nation of the United States of America, or as I call it, as I mentioned earlier in chat in the screen, as I call it, the imperialist corporations of white supremacy. So that'll be an interesting stream, as I'm going to just not, it's not going to be an exhaustive list, it's not going to be a complete list, but I'm just going to rattle off the things I know that like, oh, the shit that America has done to that is terrible. Just go on like how terrible America is. But Corey Johnson, on his latest podcast, the person he was talking to, he had on as guest, talked about this book of work. Whereas, like, the guest, I forgot the name of the guest, unfortunately, so his name escapes me. But it's the latest episode of The Mind of the Skeptical Leftist. Whereas, like, his conservative coworker that he's still friends with for some reason, gave him this book of work and be like, I think you might like this book. And the guy loves the book Work by Crimethinc, and they sell it on Crimethinc store. So yeah, do check out that book. But you can see it like in the link here. It's available as a pamphlet too. So I think I'll like I'll copy that link and open it up in another window. Okay, and it's available as a PDF. Can easily download as a PDF. Good. Oh wait, that's just this pamphlet that I'm reading right now. Never mind. Unnecessary. Unimportant. I'm now going to continue on reading from the essay. Sorry about that. That depends on what you mean by work. Think about how many people enjoy gardening, fishing, carpentry, cooking, or even computer programming just for their own sake. What if that kind of activity could provide for all of our needs? Yeah. I know of another streamer, she's streaming like now, Sandy AJ. She's the one that came up with the Stabby Stab song for when she plays, that should be it. How come it's not working? There we go. But she created her own website, Tokyo Pop Rocks, and it's which actually I'm now a part of. I haven't just I have the ability to give away vouchers to game codes. Just haven't done it yet. But I have the ability to do so. I should get on with that, honestly. But she, on her own time, does all the coding for Tokyo Pop Rock. She even demonstrates on stream of like the coding that she has done to create the site, and also to be able to have it be a portal or be a network of other streamers to be able to give away game codes or other like sort of things, like even digital movies or gift cards or other things like that. And she does all that computer program on her own time. But it's that profitable, or it is maybe I don't know. But she does it on her own time. She loves to do that. There's like Telnet Star Wars. Someone spend their whole time, their own free time, to like tell Star Wars, recreate Star Wars as in A New Hope, that movie, in Telnet. It's all like just visuals and stuff like that, but it's just kind of cool looking when you think of passion outs of the war. But yet there's a lot of people that have a lot of different skills that they do it for the sake of it, for the love of it. But yet it's like, it's how many musicians how many poets how many actors how many singers, how many dancers, how many artists, and seamstress. Yeah. And people do it for the love of it. And but apparently people need to make money in order to live, as it were. But I'll continue on. For hundreds of years, people claimed that technology progress would soon liberate humanity from the need to work. Today, we have capabilities of our ancestors couldn't even imagine. But those predictions still haven't come true. In the U.S., we actually work longer hours than we did a couple generations ago. The poor in order to survive, the rich in order to compete. Others desperately seek employment, hardly enjoying the comfort leisure of all this progress should provide. Despite the talk of recession and the need of austerity measures, corporations are reporting record earnings. The wealthiest are wealthier than ever, and tremendous quantities of goods are produced just to be thrown away. There are plenty of wealth, but it's not being used to liberate humanity. I could also go on and on about what I've read from David Graeber's book, Bullshit Jobs. David Graeber, may he rest in peace, rest in power, actually. Because and I don't know. No, there's not an audiobook of it, but I did read the book. Because there, and it's available on the Anarchist Library, Bullshit Jobs Theory. That's it, yeah, is James Maynard Keynes, the economist of like Keynes Economics, I believe, did predict that that we in 1930 we will have just a 15-hour work week. That's where, because a lot of the jobs that we are doing now will be automated away. That was actually true. If you look at the jobs that used to be done in the 1930s, no, that's a lot of those have been automated away. But why is it that we still work 40 hours a week and sometimes work longer hours? Very curious about that. David Graeber went into both jobs about his own theory about those things. It's kind of like managerial feudalism, and also just like the Protestant mindset of like work in of itself is its own value, its own reward, and the devil idle hands is the devil's playground. Oh no, we can't have people just like sitting around and do nothing. No, that'd be terrible. And in some ways, when most of the people were able to just like enjoy themselves, have freedom, and to do whatever they want, it's kind of like the hippie movement in the 60s. And the elite class saw that and be like, no, we don't want any of that. No. The proletariat, the working class, they should be like afraid of us. They should not have like free love or anything like that, or just like free associations or all that. No. And so austerity measures came in with neoliberalism in the 70s and the 80s, and well, neoliberalism was always just a class project to consolidate power. And hence all the deregulations and just like and the government and corporations working together to just continue their hold of power over everyone else. But I'm going off on another tangent, as I usually do. Okay, yeah. So this is the part I'm here. So what kind of system, back to the essay. So what kind of system simultaneously produces abundance and prevent us from making the most of it? The defenders of the free market argue that there's no other option. And so long as our society is organized this way, there isn't. Yeah, they purposely just make it their own, make it so that like there's no other options, and you have to work in order to live, as it were. But continue on with the essay. Yes, once upon a time, before time cards and power lunches, everything got done without work. The natural world that provides for our needs haven't yet been like carved up and privatized. Knowledge and skills weren't exclusively the exclusive domains of licensed expertise held hostage by expensive institutions. Time wasn't divided into productive work and consumptive like leisure. We know this because work was invented only a few thousand years ago, but human beings have been around for hundreds of thousands of years. We're told that like the life was solidarity, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. But that narrative comes to us from the ones who stamp out that way of life, not the ones who practice it. Yeah, and I think when you talk to like indigenous people, and they kind of tell you that. FYI, a good trick for staying cool in the summer. This should have been just a plain water bottle, as it were, or just a plain bottle full of water. But the water I put into it was mixed with mayo, so that didn't work out so well, honestly. You can do it on your own and figure it out, but I put this in a freezer. Actually, I put it in the very, very back of the coldest part of the refrigerator, but still same effect as it's old ice. But now I'm taking this out, and so all day long today, this thing will just melt slowly, and so the water that's coming out of this is super cold, or still remains cold, so that I will always have more cool water to mix in here. Anyway, if I do make this into a episode of the podcast audiences will not understand what I was doing there or what I was talking about. Sorry. Again, you're going to have to go back to the YouTube video of this. When I finally make this as a YouTube video, and finally get back to re-uploading my videos to my YouTube channel. follow me on my socials to like learn all about that, especially my YouTube channel. I'm running on YouTube as well. So back to the essay. This isn't to say that we should go back to the way things used to be, or that we could, only that things don't have to be the way they are now. If our distant ancestors could see us today, they'd probably be excited about like some of our inventions and horrified by others, but they'll surely be shocked by how we applied them. We built this world with our labor, and without certain obstacles, we could surely build a better one. That wouldn't mean abandoning everything we've learned, it would just mean abandoning everything we earned doesn't work. And this is the thing that I heard from like a bunch of liberals who believe that like anarchist society that like doesn't work or something like that, or believe that like they didn't the Maynard James Keener's theory about like how we will have a 16-hour work week instead of a 40-hour work week didn't pan out. And the argument that like David Greger mentions as well is that like it's all because of consumerism. We want our iPhones. We want oh, here is my phone. We want our iPhones, or this is a LG actually, or we want our gaming systems as well. And those take that's my mask. That's a mask I like clean. And those are it takes like a lot of complex systems in order to like make them something like that. And they believe that only under capitalism you can do that. And it's just like no. Anarcho-syndicalism can do that too. Anarcho-syndicalism is all about like organizing large groups of workers and radicalized unions and managing all those systems as well effectively, so that people can and just like do what they want, but yet have pride in what they're doing. Since socialism, they own them, control the means of production, and that they can like actually produce this glass, produce this like a fidget spinner, or produce this any sort of things if all of everyone's needs are taken care of first, and then we can like do whatever we want in the free time. So yeah, back to the essay. One can hardly deny that like work is productive. Just a couple of thousand years of it has dramatically transformed the surface of the earth. Yeah, right now topsoil is a big concern. If we're going to run out of topsoil, and when that happens, there's going to be food shortages. Continuing on. That's a bit of a side note and tangent though, but continuing on, back to the essay. But what exactly does it produce? Disposable chopsticks by the millions? Laptops and cell phones that are obsolete within a couple of years? Miles of waste dumps and tons upon tons of chloroformic carbons. Factories that will rust as soon as labor is cheaper elsewhere. Dumpsters full of overstock while a billion suffers malnutrition. Medical treatments only the wealthy can afford. Novels and philosophies and art movements most of us just don't have the time in our society that subordinates desires to profit motives and needs to property rights. Taking a drink. Again, yes, that is a whole mood. Because the dump, and now at the point with back to the point of like dumpsters full of overstock as billions suffer malnutrition. They even now have police officers standing guard outside of those dumpsters, guarding them, and preventing people from like getting access to the free food. So that's another way that food is political. Because why else would there be armed guards and police officers outside of the dumpster preventing people from like grabbing the food that would just go rotten and could be eaten out of those dumpsters? Now granted, while everything is political, the political is not everything. Right, so yes, you can enjoy like some games and stuff, and not have to like think about the political implications of those sort of things, because like even like games and TV shows and entertainment can be fun when you have even like the novels or even some of the philosophies or definitely art movements, when you have the time to enjoy them from the society. But they're gonna like go back to the essay. And where do the resources for all of the productions come from? What happens to the ecosystems and communities that are privileged and exploited, that are pillaged and exploited? If the work is productive, it's even more destructive. Interesting. Ooh, I like that. Continuing on. Work doesn't produce goods out of thin air. It's not a conjuring act. Rather, it takes raw materials from the biosphere, a common treasury shared by all living things, and transform them into like products alienated by the logic of market. For those who see the world in terms of balance sheets, this is an improvement. But the rest of us, it shouldn't take their, but the rest of us shouldn't take their words for it. Capitalists and socialists have always taken it for granted that work produces values. Workers have to consider a different possibility that working uses up value. That's why the forests and polar ice caps are being consumed alongside the hours of our lives. The aches in our bodies when we come home from work parallels the damage that has taken place on a global scale. I forgot who said it, but someone said, I don't need to read Marx because I have the marks of capitalism on my body. And I know I'm going back to like the cell phones and the laptops that are obsolete within a couple of years at this point because I forgot to mention it as well. There is a point why they, as we all know, there's a point why the laptops and the cell phones have become obsolete within a couple of years, and why even like Apple will actually actively slow down. Bill Hayward. Oh yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I think it's like Bill Hayward. But Apple and Samsung would actually slow down the speeds of like the older models of the iPhones or the Galaxies, just so they'll actually encourage people to like buy the latest models and within a couple of years, because you always got to buy the latest models or something like that. It's all because like people gotta keep on consuming, because capitalism requires exponential growth. In an essay that like David Graeber wrote that I read on stream, where Dave Graeber actually says, in order to like save the environment, in order to save the environment and save the our ecosystem, we got to stop working. Again, it's not to save the earth; the earth will still be around, but then we got to like save the hospitable environment for us. So that we can be able to live. And David Graeber mentioned in that essay that we gotta like stop working, period, in order to try to slow down climate change. It's because companies can actually make products that can last. They're called military grade. You can specifically build laptops, build cell phones to be as strong as bricks and be able to like last for 7, 10, 15 years. They don't make those things because it's not profitable to do so. From like anything that's made in like in the 70s or the 50s or the 80s, as it were, those things also tend to last too. But also, what for your televisions or your VCRs or all those kind of like electronics from those times, or parents' times, as it were, or Gen X times, no, they would also be repair shops. And I read an article in the Seattle Times, I think, actually 15 years ago, actually almost 20, yeah, 15 years ago, how like those kind of like repair shops are dying off. One of the things that those electricians that those repair shops would actually do is that the companies that would produce those TVs, produce those VCRs, produce all those electronics, they would actually have classes, provide classes or seminars for those repair shop owners to like go to learn how to repair this VCR or this model of VCR, this from this company, or how to repair this like TV. So they would learn how to repair all those things. But now, but of course, like once they realize, like, oh wait, no, if we engineer obsolescence into these devices, then they'll have to buy a new one every 4 years or something like that, and thus increase their profits because they will increase the demand for those things. And yeah, so it's just like shows you how bad capitalism is, especially since like it requires exponential growth. And if there's any slowdown whatsoever, like a pandemic or like the 9/11 terrorist attack, then it's like, oh my God, no, we can't have that. And it's hence why George W. Bush after 9/11 said, "Go shop." That's all he said. Go shop. Because that was required to keep the capitalist mode of productions, mode of commodification continuing. Because if it did, it would just like grind to a screeching halt and like collapse. Or at least it always feels like it. And whenever like there's any product that is like late, as it were, it's like we're gonna be lying down, and I'm just like saying like, why is that a problem? But we design lying down, so why is that a problem? Oh, but we can't sell things. Okay, do people really need those things if they're not lying down? And well, then our customers need something. Okay, so but if we had all our needs met, like we have all our needs met, we wouldn't have to like go to the jobs, or would it be okay if we're lying down? Then why is it a big problem that we're lying down? So even some of my coworkers who would like looking for work or something, like asking for work or saying they want work or something like that, they would be like finally say, "Oh, I don't know." The culture of work in this like country is just like so pervasive. Where was I? Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna go to this part. I probably already read this part, but I'll continue. I'll read from this part anyway. Um, what should we be producing if not all this stuff? Well, how about happiness itself? Can we imagine a society in which the primary goal of our activities was to make the most of life, to explore its mysteries, rather than to amass wealth or outflank competition? We would still make material goods in such a society, of course, but not in order to compete for profits. Festivals, feasts, philosophy, romance, competitive creative pursuits, child rearing, friendships, adventures. Can we picture these as the center of life, rather than pack them into our spare time? Side note here, this is why I think my friend Litoano, who is the co-host of Such Justice Alchemy, I think she's like absolutely right in that we just got to be okay with being lazy. There's no such thing as being lazy, honestly. You gotta be okay with doing nothing, or you gotta be okay with all you do all day is sit and play video games. Such as what my younger brother's doing right now. You gotta be okay with all those sort of things. We gotta be okay. This is her words. Being useless, because it's okay that you don't have to have a use. Uh, it's a strange phenomenon, because I actually remember this when I was like playing golf with friends with Nekonomicon. Go ahead and shout Nekonomicon because she's a fun streamer. Her and she might show up in the chat as well as she showed up in last night's chat. But there was like one of her followers that were in the live chat, and from when we played golf with friends, was it last Saturday you said, or like 2 weeks ago? I think it was last Saturday. Anyway, someone said that like they finally got their PC and got all these equipments, and it was a line that I knew that they were saying in jest. They weren't serious about it, but that got me thinking a lot, and I said something, and on stream as it were, that the person said, after I spend all this money on this PC and something like that, all these things that I spend money on, I'm gonna be worth more than my life. Again, I knew that they were saying that in jest, and they weren't being serious. They were just making a joke. But it's kind of like, if we actually do believe that, the person said it too, to imply that there's some people do believe that like someone's life is worth less than like the computer that he built, the $4,000 of the computer that he like built up, or something like that. And that's why I have to like say that everyone has inherent value, even if that's just a value to themselves and no one else. Or it's not a value to like any company, not a value to society, not a value to their friends or their family, not a value to the struggle or to the movement or to the revolution, as it were. So that's why Letoano even like stressed that like even amongst other leftists, like other socialists, other anarchists, other communists, is that like it's okay if someone just exists, as it were, because honestly, for some people, existing itself is still a struggle because they're through a disability or through many different things, and like they can't really like function in a lot of different ways or be able to contribute to society, as it were. It is a struggle to exist, as it were, and that should be okay. We gotta be okay with that, and we gotta be accommodating to that too. That's the other half of it, of like two each according to their needs. If they need more, we need to provide them more. And because for the first part of it, from each according to their ability, if someone is willing to do a whole bunch of like different things of doing all the farming or doing a lot of like carpentry, doing a lot of like programming, that's fine. There's like one guy that edited over 1,000 different Wikipedia articles, and he probably has his own full-time job. It might be a white-collar bullshit job, which like David Graeber actually talked about, because there was one person who actually did figure out how that he can has the websites that he goes to being just in text space, no the graphics and anything like that, just like be absolutely all in text space, so it will still be look like that he's working as it were, and he used that to be edit a bunch of like Wikipedia articles, including some articles that about David Graeber or some things he talked about or the other things he wrote about. And so that's the second, the first part and the second part of like communism, from each according to their ability and to each according to their need, which is why it should be okay for like people to be useless, as it were. All right, continuing on. Today things are the other way around. Our conception of happiness is constructed as a means to simulate production. Small wonder products are crowding us out into the world. Work doesn't simply create wealth where there was only poverty before. On the contrary, so long as it entrenches some at others' expense, work creates poverty too, in direct proportions to profit. Poverty is not a objective condition, but a relationship produced by unequal distribution of resources. There's no such thing as poverty in societies in which people shares everything. There may be scarcity, but no one is subjected to the indignity of having to go without while others have more than they know what to do with. As profits is accumulated and the minimum threshold of wealth necessary to exert influence in society rises as higher and higher, poverty becomes more and more deliberately. It is a form of exile, the cruelest form of exile. For your stay within society while being excluded from it, you can neither participate nor go anywhere else. My commentary. Poverty is not a bug of capitalism; it's a feature. In this, you can go out and bigger into the global scale, as where the reason why there are rich countries is because there are poor countries. Through imperialism, through colonialism, and through the current form of colonialism, imperialism, debt, a lot of the poor nations are purposely forced to be poor because the structural adjustment programs that institutions like the IMF and the World Bank enforce on those countries, that in order for those countries to not be poor, they have to take out large loans. But then, in order for those countries to accept those loans from the IMF and the World Bank that have to be paid back with interest, those countries have to privatize a lot of the industries inside, including some of their biggest resources of industries. If they have a lot of natural gas, they have a lot of lithium, they have a lot of different resources, natural resources. Those things have to be privatized, and they go to the lowest bidder or the highest bidder, and they have to make themselves available to corporations to be able to take those resources, and they get barely anything back to it, because again, they have to pay back the loans from the IMF and the World Bank. Is War by Other Means. It's a documentary that covers that. War by Other Means that covers how a lot of the poorest countries. Hey Lin Wu, how you doing? I'm going on about the mythology of work and how poverty is created intentionally by capitalism, and that's true on the largest and the global scale. There's a book I also read too called The Divide that covers that too in good detail. Yeah, I'm sure you already know. It's kind of like the things that the World Bank and the IMF does to like all of the other like poor nations, like the global South, as it were, or else because of like imperialism and colonialism, and of how even like Necronomicon kind of like knows this and had a conversation with Sarah Britt, also a great streamer, Sarah Britt, because Necronomicon was wondering, I mean, why is it that like yeah, structural adjustments is like horrible. Yeah, because Necronomicon was noticing, why is it like all the vaccines are made in Europe and America are available only in Europe and only in America, yet any vaccine that was like made outside of Europe and America are provided to worldwide, as it were. Um, it's somewhere in the conversation they were having back and forth. They mentioned, someone mentioned me. I think Necronomicon's like, I wonder what Jonathan, that's my real name, Jonathan. I wonder what Jonathan would think about that. And so it goes, oh, SomeRandomG would have opinions about that. And yeah, I did. It's all because of like the patents, as it were. Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson and Johnson, AstraZeneca. Those companies have their patents on those vaccines, which is why they're not letting other corporations or other facilities or other factories outside of Europe and America produce those vaccines. They still get profits from those vaccines. It's from the government's paying for those vaccines, so that like we can all get, if those in America and those in Europe can get those vaccines for free, and everyone that's available to should get their vaccines. I got my 2 shots of Moderna. Get vaccinated because it's important, but yet those companies still want to like make profits off of those vaccines, which they were heavily subsidized to be able to produce the vaccines, because it's important to get a vaccine for COVID-19 as soon as we can. But they still want the profits. They still want the profits, and so that's why this vaccine apartheid has happened until someone actually waives the patents or waives the like patents fees for those like vaccines. And that's my point to like Necronomicon, and I put it in a way that like she can understand it. It's just like how like DMCA's happens on like Twitch streams and all. It's all because those record labels claim to have the ownership of those songs, even the redistribution of the songs or the additional uses of the songs, like in someone else's like streams. Even though when we're coming to like this stream, we're coming to the stream to like listen to SomeRandomG ramble or listen to like someone else ramble. We're not there for the song, but yet they still want to claim ownership of the song to get the profits, and that's how they streams get muted, or if it happens on YouTube videos, it actually happened to a YouTube video of mine, they'll put ads on YouTube videos and all that sort of stuff, because they still want the profits from those sort of things. And I think this essay on Crimethinc, the Mythology of Work, is also going to that, because I recognize the name. That's like, oh yeah. Continuing on with the essay. Work doesn't just create poverty alongside wealth, it concentrates wealth in the hands of the few while spreading poverty far and wide. For every Bill Gates, 1 million people must live below the poverty line. For every Shell oil, there has to be a Nicaragua. The more we work, the more profits is accumulating from our labor, the poorer we are compared to our exploiters. Cops haven't taken the tactics of like paying copyright music and to not get recorded if you post it on YouTube. I did see that video, Linwu. Yes. Others mention that as a tactic with their get like confronted by either a Steven Crowder or a Alex Jones on the streets. Just like blast Disney music and while they're trying to talk to you, like Let It Go from Frozen, because then the Steven Crowder and Alex Jones, well, Alex Jones is not on YouTube, but Steven Crowder cannot post that video up on YouTube, because then Disney will like copyright claim that like a video, as it were. But like a cop tries to take that tactic, playing a Taylor Swift song to try to like get make it so that like a reporter could not like use a video of him, that reporter, recording the police officer harassing a protester. He was blaming Taylor Swift, but Taylor Swift gave permission, or the record label gave permission, and so like, oh no, play that, no, share that video, share it in the far and wide. And so it's kind of like, okay, it was still in the Howards of the Power to Be, who owned the licenses to that music, to like I say, share it around, as it were. But that was but using the copyright music against like posting a video of a police officer harassing a protester, that's how kind of like these sort of things do. Even Jim and Stephanie Sterling figured out like a long ago, because they've always had like the problems of like DMCA's or copyright strikes and like in their videos or something like that, or like they will put ads on the videos when they never put ads on the videos before because of the music or something, the kind of material they used got copyrighted. It was a bot attacks of it. But then they figured out like, oh wait, if I put this, Nintendo did that a lot. So if I put the Nintendo thing and then something else also, then they both fight for the copyright. The two competing claims, and then it's like while that's happening, the video producer still gets the ads, but then gets the revenue itself because until they have to settle the claims. It's kind of like weird how like, especially when it's like AI is doing those whole things, and that like it's yeah, I think it even like happened to their own music, where it's like their own companies, like the Sony, they would put up a movie trailer or something like that, and then Sony Music would copyright claim the video. I think I remember that happened. I definitely know what happened where Sony Music sued itself because Sony produces like Walkmans or other or MP3 players where you have the ability to copy music. And because it's part of a class action lawsuit of like the music producers that want to sue electronics makers who are making electronics that allow you to copy music. Just copyrights and like intellectual property rights. So continuing on with the essay and off of the tangent. I probably should like call these like things more of like tangents instead of anything else. So in addition to creating wealth, work makes people poor. This is clear even before we factor in all the other ways work makes us poor. Poor in self-determination, poor in free time, poor in health, poor in sense of like self beyond our careers and bank accounts, poor in spirit. I mean, hold on, back to the point about like poor in sense of self beyond our careers. I felt this when I was laid off my job at the gas station. It was my own fault. Luckily the person that was like making sure I was checking ID was over 21 anyway and was part of like the bar association and something like that. Be responsible store. It's just like they'll send people that like are in between like 30 and 21 to make sure that you are actually asking people for ID. If you get a green card, good thing. But if you get a red card, if you get 2 red cards within 12-month period, you get fired. And so I got my second one within 12-month period. It's as opposed to the state doing it, they'll actually send someone who's actually 17 trying to like ask for buy beer or buy cigarettes, and if you successfully sell beer or cigarettes to someone under the age of 17, you get in jail. So yeah, I was lucky to just get fired and not go into jail, but still, that's why I got fired. But I had a terrible sense of self because I was unemployed, or as my dad said, I was on sabbatical. That need to not be embarrassed of like your son or daughter or child when other family members, it's just like so often we just hide the truth from ourselves or from others. But I did felt that because it was kind of like I didn't have a sense of self, or I wasn't politically active as I am now, or was engaged in political theory as I am now. Oh, when I lost my job, so I kind of was like, what is there? Yeah. Oh, yes, exactly, Linru. Linru says in the chat, also, society built this way, it's like shameful to disabled people. Yes, that's why this is inherently ableist. Even my friend Isaiah Taylor mentioned, was ranting, not last time, but like a couple weeks ago, about like how he's still like trying to look for the dream job, as it were, because that's how this capitalist society has conditioned us, that we have to like dream of a job, dream of a career, or pursue our dreams, as a word. This is something my dad said. Pursue your dreams. But that's it. He just said, pursue your dreams. We have to figure that shit out on our own. I mean, no, we have to figure out that shit on our own because, well, my dad, and I love my dad, despite our political differences, it's not major. He just like it's conservative and thinks that like Sweden is like socialist. And it's just like, hey, yeah, Linwu, exactly. Why would I dream of having a boss? But then Linwu, what's what is so insidious about this conditioning is that, like, others will say, well, that's why you work hard, put your nose to the grindstone and your eyes on the clock, so that one day maybe you will be the boss or you'll be your own boss. And it's all about encouragement to uh, have your own, start your own business. The entrepreneur spirit. Start your own business. But then if you start your own business, you have to then compete with all the other people that start their own business and all the other businesses, especially the many well-established businesses and all the businesses that have the most capital. Because that's what it comes down to in this capitalist system. It's not about like who has like the ingenious like product or the clever like mode of production or anything like that. It's whoever has the most capital. I remember who my dad thought as a good entrepreneurs as undocumented workers. Wow, that's interesting. Hey, but yeah, and that's kind of like the serious thing is how like the capitalist corporate ladder, as it were. That in fact, that hierarchy itself has becomes like the incentive because like you can like work your way up to be middle manager, or you can start as like a seasonal worker and then work your way up to be store manager. But even that. I realized that on my own. Okay, if there's 30 people that work on the day shift, swing shift, and night shift at the McDonald's, but only like 3 managers, or like even 1 manager, or various different managers at that same McDonald's, then if one person moves up, there's not enough room for the other people behind them. This was true for my oldest brother. He went from a technician 1 to a technician 3, not because he was like qualified for. He was already qualified for. That was not the problem. The problem was there wasn't room for him to be promoted. That's it. It's that pyramid hierarchy, where there's only so many few people room for people at the top. So this idea of social mobility is because there has to be people that are poor, has to be people that like are not working, and there has to be people down at the bottom. And again, it's another thing I want to like just like mention on like Twitter or something like that, or Facebook, and like a thread or like a post. This is not on. That's not an uncommon petite bourgeoisie idea. The food fanatics that's in the chat. The stereotypes of Asian, Latin, and Latina people maps well onto the ideal entrepreneur archetypes. Yes, unfortunately, the Vietnamese comedian Dat Phan actually it said this joke. 2 Asians walk into a bar. 2 weeks later, they own the bar. It's like, oh yeah. So years ago when I was watching the show Monster House on Discovery Channel, it's kind of that reality show where it's just like a bunch of contractors like working together to like try to like make do a remodeling of a house within a week, and then if they're successful in doing that within a week, they're in prices of like more tools. One of them was like not really laying bricks as it were, but actually more as like laying brick slabs, like thin slabs of bricks that they places onto a wall to make it look like a brick wall, as in like the wall's made out of bricks instead of like made of wood and then slabs of bricks. But anyway, so he was essentially laying bricks, and it was still a back-breaking job for him to do. And at the end of it, once he finally complete that task, and he stretches and sore, his body aches and all his back, and he's going to feel that tomorrow, and says to the camera, kids, stay in school. And what that means is like, kids, you stay in school, excel in academia, excel at like education, and get to those college degrees and those other, and get those like high paying jobs, so you don't have to do the back paying work that I just did. Because you are better than them? But I mean, he wasn't intending to like say that. It was the encouragement of like staying in school so you can get a good job and get a good life. But without answering the question, it's like, but then who has to lay the bricks? And if someone has to lay the bricks, but someone who goes to school doesn't, are you implying that the person who goes to school is better than the person who has to lay the bricks? Again, it's when we don't examine all these conditionings and all this like systems and all what we are taught and what we were forced to learn and what we like adopted and from our society, from our parents, from our teachers, from the authorities that we have to listen to, we are trained to listen to, we're forced to listen to it, and that's what everyone's encouraged us to listen to. We don't really question these sort of things. It's just okay, so if everyone goes to school, everyone goes to college, everyone gets a BA, everyone gets all gets all those college degrees to prove so I don't have to lay bricks. Are there enough white-collar jobs for all those college degree people? I pointed it out to my dad. If everyone in my class of my year, 2003, everyone gets a college degree, a bachelor's, or a master's, or a PhD, is there enough jobs for all of those college students, all those people with BAs? And that's where my dad had to say, it's I'm not sure. Just kind of proves the point. It's just there's going to have to be someone to lay the bricks. Hence why, as part of this essay points out to, it's intentional that there has to be poor, that there has to be poverty, there has to be that divide. This is what happens when some random geek is on his anti-capitalist bent. A rant and tangent about a whole bunch of other things. Refilling my water. And I have to wait for that to melt. Alright. Or I can fill this with water to make the water so cold. Anyway. Finally back to the essay and less of my tangents. This is why, something me reading something, it should only take 15 or 20 minutes or so, and then it takes me an hour and a half to do so because I go on these rants. So continuing on with the essay. Costs of living. Estimates are misleading. There's little living going on at all. Costs of working is more like it, and it's not cheap. Okay, again, side note, I've always gone on this. It's the idea that there is such a thing as costs of living, which does imply it explicitly says that there's a paywall to living, and the mere existence of that paywall means that some are excluded from living. And how come more people don't realize that conservatives, how come they don't realize that the idea of the cost of living means that they're okay with excluding people from live because they don't have the money to pay for it? Maybe either because they haven't thought of it, or exactly. Cost of living implies dystopia. Either they haven't thought of it and can't be convinced, or they have thought of it but don't care that some people are going to be poor anyway, or they prefer that way, that there's are poor people there. And I agree, it is actually no. I mean, it's that's not what we're talking about, and I'm not reading the Bible on stream anyway. So continuing on. Everyone knows the house cleaners, the dishwashers pays for being the backbone of our economy. All the scourges of poverty, addiction, broken families, poor health are par for the course. The ones who survive these have and somehow go on showing up on time and working miracles. Okay. Manranka, I'm an atheist. I'm a passive theist. And it's to each their own if they want to read the Bible. And do keep in mind this is a collaborative learning stream. And so please keep the conversation and to the topic of hand of the mythology of work. Or generally speaking, along capitalists and socialists and communists and something like that. Those kind of things will be related to the conversation. Okay, so back to this point. The ones who survive these and somehow go on showing up on time are working miracles. Things that they could accomplish if they were free to apply that power to something other than earning profits for their employers. I'm gonna also go on another tangent, maybe touch on like the house cleaners and the dishwashers and all those sort of things. Existence comics or someone on Twitter I mentioned this like they say, oh, those CEOs say that they work hard, they work hard, they work hard, they work hard. Yeah, but they can afford to have a bunch entire service in industry staff of maids and chefs and house cleaners to be able to clean their house, their big mansions. That's how they ever do it. They don't have to like clean their do the dishes or do all those things on the weekends or even raise their kids. They don't have to. That's how they can like dedicate themselves to be like working hard and work 16-hour days as a CEO, where they're doing unproductive labor. They're doing unproductive labor because it's just admin stuff that can be redistributed to like a whole bit of different many other people. And again, just like in many other examples, when the CEO of like McDonald's disappears tomorrow, there's no CEO of McDonald's. McDonald's still runs. McDonald's still runs just fine. But if all the workers disappear tomorrow, McDonald's can't run. It's actually happening right now. Oh, and for those of you who are new, I'm going to like type of the commands of politics, and that also explain my politics too. In case you're wondering, since I was like been told to read the Bible, and it's just like I'll read that like a work of like speculative fiction on my own. I'm sure there's like a good like advice I can like get out of it though. There's communism in there. I read that book. Communism in the Bible. But anyway, so back. Oh yeah, and another thing about like the house cleaning and the dishwashing. David Graeber also made this point too that capitalism requires patriarchy, cis hetero allo patriarchy, which some Christian sects actually are huge fans of. To be honest, certain sects of like Islam and other like religions are probably also huge fans of patriarchy. To be honest, so it's not just Christians. Other different like forms of religions, they all have their problems. As with most like general ideologies, it's very difficult to like get to expunge all of toxicity out of like particular ideologies, even in anarchism, honestly. But it's because of like the man is the breadwinner, comes home, brings home the bacon, that the woman does a lot of the unpaid labor of the housework and the child rearing, reproductive labor as it were, that allows capitalism to thrive as it does before. It's all because of that unpaid labor that like been, because of the patriarchy, been forced onto women to do. And again, it's like when the feminists were like talking about like the ending the patriarchies were, it's not because they want to be like have a timesheet and a clock and a punch in and out for their work at the housework and so on like that. They just want the share of the housework to be equal amongst the genders. That was the feminist critique of that, if I remember correctly. It's that part of like it's not the breakdown of the like traditional family. It's because the traditional family is inherently patriarchal, and there's major problems with that, like the unequal distribution of the share of chores and the household work. It is actually beneficial and advantageous, I think, to like for the children to be raised to get like a lot of attention from both parents, regardless of the gender. So it's just not just like man and woman. It's like no, person and person, woman, woman, man, man, definitely. Hey, and now I'm now remembering a funny scene from like the movie Pride. Yeah, but that's more off topic than anything else. So I'll continue on. Okay. Hey, back to the essay. What about their employers? Fortunate to be like higher on the pyramid. I've been ranting about that this in like entire half an hour. Continuing on, you would think earning a higher salary would mean having more money and thus more freedom, but it's not that simple. Every job entails hidden costs, just as a dishwasher has to be paid bus fare and to and from work every day, a corporate lawyer has to be able to fly anywhere at a moment's notice, to maintain a country club membership for informal business meetings, to own a small mansion in which to entertain dinner guests that doubles as clients. This is why it's so difficult for middle class workers to save up enough money to quit while they're ahead and get out of the rat race. Trying to get ahead in the economy basically means running in place at best. You might advantage to a fancier treadmill, but you have to run faster to stay on it. Yeah, Greenland, ew, country club. Yeah, that pressure to spend like that too. I mean, this is weird because I just remember this from years ago. Advice from billionaires to save on money, as it were, or to stay billionaires, as it were, or something like that, or multimillionaires. Honestly, they would say take public transportation. So on public transportation, as it were, maybe even in Seattle, knowing that at some point, in Seattle actually, there might be some people that are in suits that actually are business owners and actually do well for themselves, but they take public transportation to save money. Or I hear about tech networking at jobs or getting coffee with people. Yeah, exactly. But that's the thing about golf. Bougie sport is at all. Golf at country clubs, for example, very bougie sports. I love it though. I love the actual activity of playing golf, but it's a very bougie sport. I only both which, yes, exactly, Lynn. Golf courses themselves, I think, are a waste of money. Mini golf, though, more people can play mini golf. It's an entire spade and much more interesting, as a courses, as it were, and much more fun and family friendly and less skill oriented, because it's it's daunting to try to swing a golf club to drive a ball and be able to do so accurate. Well, it's fun to do. Don't get me wrong, but mini golf, I think anyone can just pick up a putter in a mini golf. Again, it's easier for people who have experience of it, but as Linwood says, I'm not sure it would be a TOS, but I know the Anarchist Library has something saying and turn golf courses into sex forces. I have shared memes before of basically the Geordie meme of just putting the palm down and saying no, contrasting with the Geordie pointing and going yes, as it were, as opposed to the Drake memes and similar things of shunning one thing but pointing to another thing. I don't like to use the Drake one because of the activities the terrible activities that Drake has done. I'm not talking about his rap music, and his music is his music, but the activities that he has done outside of the music that I heard about for Drake. Jordy, I like one and prefer no. But Jordy is no to building more golf courses. But the bottom line of Jordy going yes is basically taking those golf courses, unused land as it were, and building more housing for the homeless. There we go. That's what I would do with the golf courses. You kind of those are interesting fields. So you turn the golf courses into housing though, but it's possible. But I like to see less golf courses and more housing for people. Even though there's already actually tons of housing as it is, 6 times as many homes as there are homeless people in America. We just need to actually use it. Anyway. But it's kind of interesting in the corporate world that they do encourage people to to pick up golf as it were, because for the business meetings at the country clubs of the golf meetings, the informal business meetings, and for the business world, it's just if you see someone cheating at golf, they mention it, then that probably be a person that would be cheating in the business deal as well. Hey, well, that is something. You can actually probably learn about someone's character when you play golf with them, because you could possibly see them at their worst. They hit the ball way off into the far right, way off course, they hooked it, or what's the opposite? Hook it. Hook it's when you turn into yourself and anyway, they're way off course, and how they react to that. Yeah, that'll be interesting to that's an interesting judge of character, if how they react when they lose that golf. Anyway, back off of golf and that bougie sport. Back to the essay. Continue on. And these measly financial costs of working are less expensive. In one survey, people of all walks of life were asked how much money they would need to live the life they wanted. from pauper to parishioner, they all answered approximately double whatever their current income was. So not only is money costly to obtain, but like any addictive drug, it is less and less fulfilling. And further up you get in the hierarchy, the more you have. Okay, we'll reread that sentence. And the further up you get in the hierarchy, the more you have to fight to hold your place. The wealthy executive must abandon his unruly passions and his conscience, and must convince himself that he deserves more than the unfortunate who labors provides him his comfort. Much smoother his impulses to question, to share, to imagine himself in other shoes. If he doesn't, and sooner or later, some more ruthless contenders replace him. Both blue collar and white collar workers have to kill themselves to keep the jobs that keeps them alive. It's just a question of physical and spiritual destruction. And Lynn was saying in the chat, oh, totally agree. Money means more to those that don't have it. Oh, yeah, exactly. And now I'll mention again how even my dad internalized this, and that my dad suggested to me, in order for me to do better at work when I was working in assembly on assembly line, to only go to the bathroom on my breaks. So even if I had to really had to go, I had to hold it and wait for my break, and then go. And I know some trans women that can have complained about the co-workers side-eyeing them about taking frequent bathroom breaks. Well, they're on spirulactone. Hello there. Hello, J.A. Space. Thank you for dropping by. But spirulactone is it really causes trans women or trans people to urinate a lot. So they have to go to the bathroom. I'm sorry. Yeah, exactly. Lynn, she said in the chat that she can't get work done while holding it. It's the spirulactone. That's the word I was looking for. It's a diuretic. But yet my dad really believes that in order to move up and do good at a job, you have to put your nose to the grindstone and apply yourself. And oh my god, you have to concern yourself with what your coworkers think of you, because I won't go into it, but no, that was actually seriously the thing. Apparently, if my older brother were to get a job at at the place I worked at before, when I worked in the assembly department, this was before I became a permanent employee, or something like that, when I was a temporary employee, we could not acknowledge that we were brothers. It's because of a whole thing that was happening there. Apparently, I was a bad employee at the time, or I didn't get along with the lead. It's best that my oldest brother should, if he were to get a job at the place I worked at, should not acknowledge that we are brothers. That would have been bad for him. To which my oldest brother said straight to our father's face, "If that is true, then probably that's a bad place to work." It's kind of true. It's just unfortunately, a lot of sometimes people just get fired because others did not get along with you, or you didn't get along with the group. Sadly, that could still happen in an anarchist society because of free association, though. Continuing on. And back to the essay. Those are the costs we pay individually, but they're also a global price to pay for all this working. Alongside the environmental costs, there are work-related illnesses, injuries, and death. Every year, we kill people by the thousands to sell hamburgers, healthcare memberships to survivors, Oh, that's frightening to think about it. But I guess if we are a bunch of if a lot of us are working. And that's fair actually to call us all survivors on the system of capitalism, since the system of capitalism actually does kill people. Continuing on. The U.S. Department of Labor reported that twice as many people suffered fatal work injuries in 2001 as died in the September 11th attacks. And that doesn't begin to take into account work-related illnesses. Above all, more exorbitant than any other price, there's the cost of never learning how to direct our own lives. never getting the chance to answer or even ask the question of what we would do with our time on this planet if it was up to us. We can never know how much we were getting and giving up by settling for a world in which people are too busy, too poor, too beaten down to do so. I want to highlight that point because so again, at my work, we're in manufacturing. I work in a stockroom for my company, and I build kits and send it out to like the assembly department, essentially for them to like continue work. Oftentimes, they would like ask protection and control. They would ask for more work. Or there'll be times where it's like they don't have work or they'll need work. Again, this whole idea of like, oh, we're going to be lying down if this job's not out there because like we need work. To which I just flat out ask the other workers or the other coworkers or the operators or those other people as it were, okay, why is it important that this job needs to be out there? Oh, so I can like work. Why is that a good thing? So like, no, seriously. If all the things you need in order to live, all the things for your family needs in order to live, what's actually already provided for you, would you do this job? And to which, like, hey, some people will be like, oh, no, I wouldn't do this job. I will like do whatever I want to. But to others, they were just like, I don't know. So then why is it we build these things? Why is it like we rarely actually see the final products that we are building? Because we're building a part that goes into another part and then becomes the final product. Yeah, we see pictures of it. We are shown pictures of like what the final product looks like once it's out in the field. But we rarely see that. Yeah, exactly, Lin Wu, as it says in chat. It's so alienating. But yet, a lot of the workers that I work with or work in the assembly department, they feel the need that, like, no, they must work in order to keep on working, while else would they show up for the job as a word that they get paid to do. And they just never even stop to think about it. And sometimes when I'm just like blatantly asking them, it's like, why is it so important that you work? Or if there's not work to be done at the assembly department, you should think that's a good thing. Just relax. Just go to the break room. Just read a book or something like that. Oh, but you're not allowed to do that because some of the coworkers that like. But they're running a machine. The machine is running. The machine is running. I know because I actually run some of the machines. Like you set the machine up, you set the part down, and then you run the machine. Sometimes it takes like 10 to 15 minutes for that machine to do the pass and like do all these things on all the LEDs and so there's downtime in between when you're doing each part, and so you can go on your phone, look on social media, Facebook, Twitter, or whatever it is, as you're working. And I do this all the time, actually, at my work. I'm in the stock room, and it's like I'm locked away in a room. But I'm on YouTube and Facebook and like Twitch all the time. Rue and others like know that. But yet, if in the assembly department where others are working, everyone else is working, and they see someone on their cell phone on Facebook or Twitch while working, oh, they side at that employee. Oh, how dare you are reading something on your phone? How dare you be on social media? How dare you look at your Instagram and something like that while you're working? We're working. It's school as well, because if you're on your phone you're not paying attention, and some teachers would really are really pissed off, like, is my lessons boring for you, as it were. But I think honestly it comes out of jealousy, as it were. Oh my god, I remember this. So I remember getting out, being mad at other kids for talent. Yeah, exactly. Oh, here's the thing. When I was working in the assembly department, I took some time off. Hey, can I need this day off and this weekend off? Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you. I'm not going to come in on that Saturday either. I'm going to take it off. And so like, okay, sure. Hey, so I put in my time off. I turned in the paperwork. Could be gone on Friday, not coming in Saturday and Sunday. So cool with management and leads and something like that. I did the proper thing. What I was doing, as I told my coworkers, I was going to an anime convention. According to my stepmom, who worked in the same department, that was a bad thing for me to do. Not with the leads or my supervisors or anything else. No, because I did the proper thing and filled in the paperwork and turned in the PTO 2 weeks in advance or 10 days in advance. So in proper amount of time to like, okay, they know Jonathan's not going to come in on those days and won't be available on those days. What? He's going to have, oh, that's cool. Go have fun. Oh, but the other people who heard that I'm taking Friday off, not coming in Saturday to go to the anime convention, oh, why is Jonathan going to go off and like play games and have fun and something like that? Well, we're all here to like working and coming in on Saturdays. Just like, you can take time off too. But that's the thing that my stepmom said to me that like, oh, that's a bad thing for me to do. All because the other workers were jealous that I get off to go off and play games or something like that. Or it's like, we should be working as it were. That's how insidious this whole like must work or work is its own reward sort of thing has conditioned us, has affected us. That's apparently a bad thing. Yeah, exactly, Linwood. Work, it's a cult. Which is why, honestly, if you can get away with it, do so. Get away with like as much not working you can as it were. Like as I said many times before, when I worked at the gas station, I mentioned earlier in the stream that how I lost that job is because I didn't like ID someone I should have ID once on, so I got my second red card in like a 12-month period. Is that like, but I still loved that gas station job. It didn't pay well, it paid minimum wage, but it was like at the time I was actually living with my dad, and so like expenses was like only $300 a month for rent that my dad charged me for rent for living at the house still. So it's only $300. Great. For working at the gas station, 8 hours. Sometimes we're standing all day. So yeah, it was kind of tough. And I always served the customers. Wasn't rude to the customers as much as I can, and always like serve the customers. But when there's downtime, I found a blind spot and sit up on the counter. Up and get to lean my back up against something, and in the blind spot the cameras, so the cameras could not see me. And so I would take my DS and be playing while working at the gas station for hours and hours. I got through like Contra 4 and Legend of Zelda Phantom Hourglass and so many other games while doing so. Oh man, if I had a laptop and have an air card and be like on the internet all day, something like that, oh my god, so much stuff that I would like done. I'd probably be writing whole blog posts and stuff like that. But yeah, work is a cult, and it's just like, oh my god, that cult mentality of work really affected like many people that my stepmom worked with. I think it affects my stepmom too. My dad is true. Like I said, my dad suggested I do not go to the bathroom until it's like my break. That's sort of jealousy. Anyway, continuing on. Why work if it's so expensive? Everyone knows the answer. There's no other way to acquire the resources we need to survive, or for that matter, to participate in society at all. All the early social forms that made like others ways of life possible has been eradicated. They were stamped out by like conspirators, slave traders. No, actually, that's not conspirators. My brain sometimes doesn't know what words are. As it were, I am dyslexic. Dyslexic of the world's untied. So I'll reread this part. They were stamped out by conquistadors, slave traders, and corporations that left neither tribe nor tradition nor ecosystem intact. Contrary to the capitalist propaganda, free human beings don't crowd into factories for a pittance if they had other options, not even in return for name brand shoes and software. In working, side note here, the parts that make up the computers, that has to be like ethically like managed in the post-capitalist society to where it's just like, I'm fine waiting months for the coltan to be mined ethically out of the like mines in the Congo in order to be making a next smartphone or the next computer in case like I ran out of them. But even if the post-capitalist society happens right now, there's plenty of like parts on the shelves that like can be redistributed if like if there's just no price tag on those things. No price tag. All you have to do is just like wait for the parts to be assembled together and then be shipped out. I like to imagine it that way. Instead of like a price, you just go into a queue, and then once it's your time in the queue, depending on the demand and depending on like the supply and depending on the willing workers to like work the factories to like manufacturing the Yeti microphones or like these flashlights or even electronic items as like fidget spinners, then I think they'll be like fine. And of course, there's like plenty of the already computers and already Yeti microphones and like all these other like devices already out there that we can just reappropriate like a tool library, as it were, or because they're already out there. But like for the software itself, I mentioned Sandy AJ who did her own coding for a website, Tokyo Pop Rocks. There are people there's a full community of people. I'm broadcasting from OBS. It's a open source software. We don't have to like wait that long for like a software, I don't think, and it's be the hardware that they work off of that will be like a issue, if that is an issue in the redistribution of all these goods in a post-capitalist society. But the software, there are plenty of coders that love coding and love working on software just for the hell of it, just for the work of it, that are willing to do that, because open source software is a thing. All right. Tension over, continuing on with the rest of the paragraph and the rest of the essay. In working and shopping and paying bills, each of us helps perpetuate the conditions that necessitates these activities. Capitalism exists because we invest everything in it. Excuse me. All of our energy and integrity in the marketplace. All of our resources at the supermarkets and the stock market. All of our attention in the media. To be more precise, capitalism exists because our daily activities are it. But would we continue to reproduce it if we felt we had another choice? On the contrary, instead of enabling people to achieve happiness, work fosters the worst kind of self-denial. I think I don't have to elaborate on that part because I already go into it and something like that. And the essay is elaborating as I continue on. Obeying teachers, bosses, demands of the markets, not to mention laws, parents' expectations. Oh boy, I do feel the parents' expectations are. That's continue on. Religious scriptures, like I said before earlier in the stream, idle hands are the devil's playground. That's the Protestant mindset of work. It's a value all of it in itself, so that's how we get the cult of work. There was actually a Renegade Cut video that like go into that, examining the Frank Grimes characters from a Simpsons episode, because that writer of that episode is that kind of right-wing libertarian. They believe that work is essential for its like own reward. And how it's like the episode's supposed to like demonize Homer Simpson for being like a freeloader because the character that did all the right things, just working hard, despite like all the societal conditions that prevent him from being able to achieve happiness, affected him. But he still feels like he was able to work hard to get all his degrees in nuclear physics and to get a job at the nuclear power plant in Springfield. And that but to see Homer Simpson have a lavish life without all that, it upsets him. But then it's just like that episode doesn't examine. It's like, oh, maybe all those things that make Frank Grimes' life hard shouldn't be there. But anyway, that's just the episode doesn't go into that. But that's kind of like the whole thing of the cult of work. But okay, back to the essay off of the tangent. It's religious scriptures, but continue on to what I was just saying. Social norms. Oh my God, yeah, social norms. I was just talking about that actually. Continuing on, we were conditioned from infancy to put our desires on hold. Following orders becomes a unconscious reflex. Whether or not they are in our best interest. Deferring to experts becomes second nature. Oh, you know what? I had a private conversation with someone, actually, of how they kind of like agree with me of a lot of the things, as it were, politically, as it were, but they don't often talk about that because they don't feel comfortable to talk about it, because it's all they think it's all because of like conditioning from working a retail job that forces them to not speak their mind. And I kind of said to the person, "That's horrible that you can't speak your mind. I think that sucks that you can't speak your mind." And but yet, when I worked at a gas station, sometimes I did speak my mind, and that did get me in trouble. Basically, a couple of customers complained to my manager. A couple of times I kind of like, actually no, I was actually really rude in that moment, and I made that person cry, so, or made the little girl cry, so that was actually horrible of me. I did feel bad for that one, but other times they're just like, people say, "Oh, wow, it's so cold outside," and I go, "Well, yeah, it's winter, of course it's cold. Do you expect it to be like warm in winter?" That's all I said, and it probably is how I said it, because of, like, it was early morning, I was miserable that day. You're not allowed to be miserable when you work a retail job, unfortunately, because your job doesn't care about like what's happening at home. And it's like, I think my manager even expressly said that. It's like, it doesn't matter if there's a fire going on to your home or something like that. You have to like show up and work on time, or like work expects you to show up, work on time, even with like. Yeah, exactly, Lynn. I can't bullshit to do that. My friend Phoenix said on when she last was on Social Justice Alchemy. Oh, they're so saying to her, "What you can do? You can just like work at a call center, work at a phone bank, or something like that." Yeah, exactly, Lynn. Lynn said in the chat, "I can't have my emotional state." Even to like hide something. Yeah, exactly. Some people can't do that, and which is why I know people who are on the spectrum. Do you realize how limiting that is? I think I do realize how limiting that is. Some of my other friends who are on the spectrum as well said like they can't work a retail jobs. They can't work the retail jobs because they know themselves that they'll have the urge to like want to punch the customer, as us were. The customer's always right, something like that. And yeah, I got yelled at by customers, all because this customer thought the gas price jumped by 20 cents from the previous day. It didn't. I don't know what they were. I don't know what they thought the gas prices were yesterday or the day of. But it's like, no, the gas price did not jump by 20 cents, and I'm just the clerk behind the counter at a gas station. I understand your reasoning that like nothing changed in the octane of the gasoline and why it's jumped up by 20 cents, but like, no, I cannot change the gas prices. I physically do have the power to do so, but I do that under orders to do so. I like, no. So I can understand how some people just like can't handle that, but like this condition of not being able to speak your mind when you're a customer service representative of ConocoPhillips. You have to like fake the smile in order to serve the customers, because the customer is always right. And from that, I can understand how someone gets conditioned to not speak their minds, even on like controversial topics or contentious topics, actually, like politics, as it were. Which I guess is the reason, like some people, Lynn was saying, chat, work on the capitalism also takes in so much freedom to actually get stuff done on employees. Yeah, exactly. Which I guess is the reason why some people still get so conditioned to like not speak their mind, like on politics stuff, which is why they like tend to like avoid political talk on their channels, as it were. I guess that's part of the reason like some channels have like I generally avoid political discussions, as it were. I'm not that kind of person. Sometimes and I maybe do too much, as it were. I try to add the politics to the conversation, but I am doing that as a way of agitprop, to agitate and propagate, as it were. Because when someone's like mentioning something like about music or something, or money, as it were, money, and how like there's like the fluctuation in like currency rates, and how like the Canadian dollar is worth less than the American dollar, and I just like, it's kind of interesting about like money, especially when looking in the history of money, as how it's like for the longest years, for thousands of years, people thought it was barter that what we used, which is why we created money, but honestly, we used debt for the first 5,000 years. And in some streams, I cannot go further into that discussion because they have the rule of avoid politics, as it were. But when people, or I just like will say something quickly and stuff like that. Money's imaginary. We just like imagine. We just like all collectively assign value to money, which is why Canadian dollars worth some amount, but American dollars worth another amount. It's all imaginary. It's all like it's subjective, as it were. Again, in some channels can't go elaborate on that topic, but other times but other channels do have like just fully accepted like the political talks on the channels completely, absolutely. So when they mention how like Spider-Man as they cannot be in some of the MCU properties, as it were, or some of the Marvel games, as it were. Law is a social construct. I agree, Renlu. Yes, law is a social construct. And then I can allow, in an anarchist society or the fully luxury automated gates-based anarcho-communist society I dreamed of, there won't be such a thing as like intellectual property rights, which is why Spider-Man is in the MCU movies, because like Marvel and Sony made a deal. But that's why Spider-Man doesn't show up in the Marvel video games, because they have to make a separate deal. But Sony has the exclusive rights to not only the movie rights, but also the game rights to Spider-Man. And then that starts the conversation, because some people believe that, even some socialists believe, like, no, you still need like intellectual property rights to protect artists' creations, as it were. And I'm like, why? Anyway, let's go into a separate topic. Okay, yeah. Okay. Yes. That's an interesting name. Yeah, but then again, I actually shouldn't like judge either, because like I don't hate liberals themselves. Some liberals I do hate. It's mostly liberalism that I hate. Because liberals, I believe, at least some of them, I can like radicalize them to be like at least social democrat or maybe democratic socialist. But that's not far enough for me. I want to be all anarchists. Anyways, continuing on. But welcome on in. Okay, back to the essay. Selling our time rather than doing things for our own sake, we could evaluate our lives on the basis of how much we could get in exchange for them, and not what we get out of them. And thank you for the follow. Thank you for the follow. Chloe hates libs. Thank you for the follow. Continuing on upward. Okay, now I'll reread this part. We come to evaluate our lives on the basis of how much we get in exchange for them, not what we get out of them. As freelance slaves, hawking our lives hour by hour, we think of ourselves as each having a price. The amount of the price becomes our measure of value. In the sense, we become commodities. Just like toothpaste and toilet paper, what once was a human being is now an employee. In a way that once was a pig is now a pork chop. Our lives disappear, spent like the money for which we trade them. And the kind of thing is like we start to think of human beings as just like employees, cogs in the machines, as it were. To which my dad said that, and again, he thinks that like that's not a bad thing that we're cogs in machines. That's to him, that's just reality. We're just cogs in a machine, and I'm just like, what was the point? I think it was about that. But then what happens to a cog that's constantly working? Okay, so one part of a whole machine and it goes missing, the rest of the machine doesn't work as properly. But then think about the cogs, they're replaceable. They're easily replaceable. There's always new ones. So if a cog gets worn down or even breaks, just replace that cog. Or if it goes missing because it doesn't show up, replace the cog. If you have a replacement for the cog. But also it's like the freelance part and like it lives hour by hour, because like now with some things like a gig company, we're not only just employees, we're now independent contractors. And that's how like Uber and Lyft and all the and all this other like gig economies kind of like is taking over the taxi industry, but yet like figuring out for the capitalist way of like being able to like exploit more labor out of it is that like the taxi companies did have to pay the taxi drivers a wage of some kind for the times they're not driving, to times they didn't pick up a passenger, the times that like they didn't have a call or so they have to pay for the times that the taxi drivers are idle. Uber doesn't have to pay the drivers for the times that they're idle. The drivers themselves have to like be in the right place at the right time to pick up orders from restaurants, for Uber Eats, for DoorDash, for Instacart, or all those things. They have to be like at the right place at the right time, and so that like the times that they're idle, not on the job, or not picking up passengers, they're not getting paid. They only get paid when they're actually on delivery, actually picking up passengers, actually like delivering something. So that's how those like gig companies and employees take the activity of like being a taxi driver and commodify it further, or remove the costs as it were, reducing the labor costs as it were, because they're not paying for them to be idle because they're not employees, they're independent contractors. But sold to them as is a great freeing experience, because like now your free time can be more money to you, because the time that you have that's free you can and do as an Uber driver, you can do it as a part-time thing, you can do it as a side thing, you can do it on the weekends, and isn't that a great thing? But then when you are desperate for more money and you incentivize that like this is more money you can earn, then the people are forced to like have to like drive more hours or work more hours, more ridiculous hours in order to make more money. I'm kind of a bit on myself for this as well, because not because I need to make more money for myself. I'm raising money for like my friends like Johanna and Phoenix as well, because Johanna always needs more money. She needs like about $1,000 each month and more than what she receives from SSDI, honestly, because SSDI is terrible. Social Security, it's like disabled like benefits as it were. It's not enough to sustain yourself, honestly, without like other income as it were. But yet they discourage you from having other incomes because the asset limits. Linwood knows about this very well, and I can like go on about it. And so even though it's like I shouldn't really put it just on myself, but I like to like, at least try to like raise money for my friends as well. So that's why when I was told no, you can't work 12-hour days, so you have to like cut down your hours to like 45 hours a week or something like that. That means I'm getting less overtime, because they were cracking down on overtime, honestly. So then I had to like figure out, okay, I guess I gotta like stream a lot more on like Twitch in order to like make up for like the 50 hours less of, or 10 to 50 hours less of overtime pay I was getting each week. So yeah, I'm sort of feeling it, but like not really. But it's just like that's why I've been like trying to be like a little bit not too hard, but a little hard on myself to try to get myself to like be streaming more, and to be able to increase my profile as a streamer, so hopefully more people can come in and like donate to Johanna and Phoenix. Information down in the panels below, or explanation for Johanna and explanation for Phoenix to learn their stories, and or at least share around Johanna's Big Bowl and Phoenix's GoFundMe page, because at least sharing around can help, hopefully. Get more eyes on it, and hopefully people have like more money to like someone with more money be able to give as well. Thank you, Linmu. Okay, back to the essay. As I take a drink, because I think I'm actually almost done with this essay, so I'm going to finish up the essay, then take a break. So, most of us have become so used to giving up things that are precious to us that sacrifices has become our only way of expressing that we care about something. We martyr ourselves for ideas, causes, love one another, even when they are supposed to like help us find happiness. I'll be honest, I've already kind of like accepted that I will martyr my financial state, as it were, partly, so that I can like help Phoenix and Joanna. Because even if like I've accrued $21,000 in credit card debt, and gotten pretty close to maxing out my credit cards. I've been over the limit actually on my credit cards once on each of them, and at a period of time. But I was able to like pay it pay the credit, put the payment on the credit cards to get that limit down before the end of the billing cycle. So I didn't max out my credit card. Um, uh, I had to think about that. If I get $21,000 to pay off my credit card debts right then and there, just like that, no credit card debt. Now it's like I have whatever the credit limit I have full and open to me. I have like said to myself, I'm still willing to like donate via my credit cards to Johanna, to Phoenix, in order to like help them out if they need it. Because unfortunately, if not them, there's going to be others. Several, NaztheNeko or Lynnaquin or even Wolfus. They have their own like PayPal pools or their own like charity links or donation links on like their streams or something like that for their own needs. Sometimes it's actually just basics like food, but others it's like Tabby has the donation goal for like her legal name change. And so there's like something in me that's like I want to financially like help those people if I'm able to. So even if like I should not get my credit cards to as close to the limit as I should, because it'll be like really financially bad for me, especially if I max them out somehow. Oh, if I'm not careful about that. But yet, even if I get like the entire credit card debt just wipe out clean and have a new slate, and like, but still have like those credit cards available to me with those credit limits, I've said to myself, I'm willing to like charge up my credit cards again to help out my friends, kind of monitoring my financial situation to help out. Which is probably not like the point of like this passage in the essay, but I'm gonna continue on with the rest of it and finish off the essay. So continuing on. There are families, for example, in which some people show affection by competing to be the one who gives the most for the others. Gratification isn't just delayed, it's passed on from one generation to the next. The responsibilities of finally enjoying all the happiness presumably saved up over the years of thankless toil is deferred to the children. Yet, when they come of age, if they are to be seen as responsible adults, they too must become working their fingers to the bones. The whole thing is just like, I work my ass off so that like you can go to college and like get a good life. But especially for those who were of the millennial generation and had the 2008 like financial crash happen while they were in college, that's not how it worked out. This were, or even for the generation X, the previous generation that were able to like get the college degree, get a good life, and had that roadmap set out for them. They weren't always happy. That's the point. That's the problem that the people who are nostalgic for the 90s don't get, which is usually the politicians like the Democratic Party wants to make the America in the 90s again. Is that even back in the 90s, the world was still shit in the 90s. Yeah, it was in between the period that after the Cold War, but before the War on Terror. But still, the 90s were shit too, because there's still a lot of shit that was going on in the world, a lot of things happening. We're still living under the neoliberal capitalism then, and it wasn't great for like everyone then, especially for marginalized people or people of color and like immigrants and other people, indigenous people. But for everyone else, we still weren't happy. The system doesn't make us happy. And so sometimes like, but the parents weren't happy, so they pass it off to the children. It's like, but yeah, it's just like, and that doesn't mean that like we're going to be happy, because we still have to work for our bones too as well. Lynn said even if 90s still was a good decade for Japan, import cards it was still shit. Yeah, exactly, Lynn. Continuing on with the essay, but the buck has to stop somewhere. People work hard nowadays, that's for sure. Tying access to resources to market performance has caused unprecedented production and technological progress. Indeed, the market has monopolized access to our own creative capacities to such an extent that like many people work not only to survive, but also to have something to do. You have to have something to do, honestly. Yeah, exactly. But what kind of initiative does this instill? Let's go back to like global warming. One of the most serious crises facing the planet. After decades of denial, politicians and businessmen have finally swung into action to do something about it. But what are they doing? Casting about casting about like for ways to cash in. Casting about for ways to cash in. Carbon credits, clean coal, green investment firms who believe that this are the most efficient ways to curb the production of greenhouse gases. It's ironic that a catastrophic caused by capitalist consumption can be used to spur more consumption, but it reveals a lot about the kind of initiative work instills. What kind of person confronted with the task of preventing the end of the earth responds, "Sure, but what's in it for me?" uh, let's go back and expand that further about like the I hate the carbon credits. That's just the capitalist solution to like the climate change disaster that was caused by capitalism. Honestly, hey, and nowadays people are saying that like no, you cannot like use capitalism or have capitalism still be around in order and to reverse climate change. In order to reverse climate change, you really got to get rid of capitalism. Yes, other things that like people, and this is the thing is like I don't think like we can do this through consumers either. A lot of like liberals would like say, "Oh, yes, there's no." But this is also true. That's not anarchist, and it's like still it's kind of true. It's true. There's no ethical consumptions on capitalism, but there is more ethical and there's less ethical. And yes, in order to like help curb of like climate change, if everyone switched to a plant-based diet, become vegan, that would greatly help too, because there's actually a lot of resources that's poured into like the production of producing beef and pork and chicken and poultry and all those other things, even fish, that like we could not use if everyone switched to plant-based diets, as it were. But I'm weak-willed as well, and I just had a pizza. It was a frozen pizza from Totino's, so but I had a pizza that had Canadian bacon on it. So it's like, I'm not perfect either. I wish that like the vegan options of I have a vegan Ben and Jerry's actually, and those are good. But that's because like most other Ben and Jerry's are made with eggs, and I'm allergic to eggs, and so like that's why it's actually easy for me to go with the vegan options on things, because there's some things that like I couldn't eat anyway amongst pastries or other desserts and treats, as it were, because eggs is an excellent binder. So if I go with something that is vegan, I know that's not made with eggs for sure. The only time I actually had like potato salad was when someone had vegan mayonnaise. And it actually works. I can't really compare it to like regular mayonnaise because mayonnaise is made with eggs. It's part of the whole thing of it. And so I never had potato salad that was eggless. My grandmother, bless her soul, and she tried to make eggless potato salads, but then I asked her, "Did you use mayonnaise or Miracle Whip with it?" And she said yes. And then you made eggs, and then you tried to make eggless potato salads, but unfortunately the mayonnaise is made with eggs, so I still can't eat it. Oh, she was so ashamed about that. But the only time I can have like a potato salad is if it's vegan potato salad because of the vegan mayonnaise, eggless mayonnaise. Um, this and I wish that those consumer products are vegan products, even like vegan ground beef or other vegan beefs and vegan meats, as it were, that were a bit cheaper because like then maybe people would buy it. But then again, also like if you get the options of like the regular beefs and the vegan beefs, especially culturally right now, or like in some parts of this culture in the societies, that most people go with the regular beefs as opposed to the vegan beefs, even if they're like the same price as were possible Whopper versus regular Whopper, an example. But if like, but also what's going to prevent like Beyond Beef or other like or possible meats or other like vegan meats to be available in most grocery stores is the meat industry itself, because the meat industry wants to fight for its own survival. That's the part that's going back to like how the politicians and businessmen's answers to the climate change, as it were, is green jobs, clean jobs. And then Lynn was saying in chat, the thing is that the thing is for like that to be profitable, I think it has to be like expensive. Yeah, exactly, Lynn, which is why it's like it seems out of reach for like many people to be able to switch from like the meats that they eat to the vegan products, as it were, or if the meats themselves are cheaper because they have the more capital. Honestly, the meat industry has some more capital. Then the consumers would go with that, which is the problem of like trying to consume our way out of the climate change problem. We can't really consume our way out of the climate change problem, and the whole thing of like protecting jobs. This is why Biden and administration and Biden and Harris, they both said that they're not ending fracking, is because it's more important to them to keep the fracking jobs around. The work still has to be kept around. Work has to be protected. Jobs have to be protected, because people need jobs. How many politicians have been talking about need jobs? We need jobs. We need jobs. It's kind of like, unfortunately, that's the way the anti-capitalism quartet had to sell the proposal of the Green New Deal, because they have to like say, don't worry, there will be jobs. And Lynnaquin said in the chat, the view of people need jobs is also a large part of like LA's traffic problem. Yeah, exactly. Oh god, people just like don't realize that like when you like increase capacity for things, and you just create more demand for this. And the car companies themselves, they did not want public transportation to be a thing, period, because it was bad for their business of selling cars. So that's why they killed a lot of like public transportation historically in places like LA or in other places across the country of the United States of America, or as I call it, the imperialist corporation of white supremacy. It's all because like the cities that got planned were car focused. They just assumed that everyone's going to have a car. Even like car insurances assumed that everyone's going to have a car. This actually happened. My dad's insurance jumped up by $300, from like $600 to $300. And yeah, exactly. Lynn said in chat. Also, the racist white flag made cities so sprawling as well. Yeah, that's a good point. But my dad's car insurance jumped up by $300 in a month period. So you call up the car insurance. Why is this? Oh, we added a new driver to your insurance policy. What do you mean you added a new driver? Who do you add a new driver? Oh, Jonathan's 18. Okay, why did you add him as new driver? Why is it like Jonathan being 18? It means that like he's the new driver and he added to the policy. Oh, because he's driving now. Right? No, he's not. He's not driving. What? He's 18 though. So? But all 18-year-olds should drive. Not my 18-year-old son. So the Progressive car insurance company assumed that I was a driver because I turned 18. We just assumed everyone's going to drive. But I actually consciously, yeah. Here's the thing, Lynn. I have driven before occasionally. I'm not sure if my learner's permits is still good. I'm 37. I still don't have a driver's license. Still don't. It was a conscious choice on my part. Oh yeah, it's not easy to like get around in like the Seattle area without a car. Don't get me wrong. No, I rely on public transportation, and it's not the greatest in Seattle or in the King County area. And even though it's like Portland has a better like public transportation system, which I've actually been to, it's still not the best. I mean, I think the public transportation system in like places like Japan or like the UK, in places, there are rural places where it's like, yeah, the bus only comes like once every hour or so, and it stops working after like at night, as it were, which sometimes to like city folks is like, that's a rarity, that's so unusual, as it were, as I've seen in some animes. But yeah, I intentionally decided to not get a driver's license because I didn't want to own the car. Too much expensive. Yeah, and it's like, that's the truth for where I live in Seattle, or near Seattle. It takes hours to like get to where I am by bus. Yeah, that's the true for my case. And so there's like structural and inherent problems in the fight against climate change. And the idea that we can like fight climate change with consumption of green products, as it were, or with the capitalist way of doing it with the carbon credits, or like the clean coal, as it were, and green investment, as it were, it's really not going to work. The capitalist mode of production is what got us to have the problem of climate change to happen. So capitalism won't fix it. It's a problem caused by capitalism. It's not a problem that can be solved by capitalism. Anyway, Continuing on with the rest of the essay, the mythology of work. If everything in our society has been driven by a profit mode to succeed, that might be not be initiative after all, but something else. Really, taking initiative and initiating new values, new modes of behavior. This is as unthinkable to enterprising businessman as it is to his most listless employees. What if working, that is, leasing your creative powers to others, whether managers or customers, actually erodes initiative? Oh, this is going to be an interesting point to get to. Okay, continue on. The evidence for this extends beyond the workplace. How many people who never miss a day of work can't show up on time for band practice? We can't keep up with reading the book for our book clubs, even when we can finish papers for schools on time. The things we really want to do with our lives end up at the bottom of the do list. The ability to follow through on commitments becomes something outside of ourselves, associated with external rewards or punishments. Oh God, I have forgotten to read chapters of books I wanted to read in time for not the book club, but a read away. I have canceled things I wanted to do in activism, as it were, showing up to meetings or something like that, or even showing up to protests. It all because I would love to show up to the DSA meetings happening tonight, but I might be working, or I might be working late. And sometimes it'll be time for me to leave for the DSA meeting. If I can leave leave now, I can make it in time for the DSA meeting. Oh, but I still got this task to do at work. Well, for me, I decide to stay and complete the task if I can get the overtime pay, because so I don't mind the over hours of work, so I can get the overtime pay. But I do make excuses for why I don't do more activism's work, mostly showing up to meetings or doing other things, because I decided I need to continue doing more work. So yeah, that's very true. That the things I really want to do is just end up at the bottom. Or it's I get so many suggestions watch this YouTube video, and I go, oh yeah, I've been meaning to watch this YouTube video, or been meaning to watch this. Last night, Necronomicon mentioned that she was catching up on some Netflix shows that she was watching, and I'm just oh yeah, there's so many Netflix shows I've been meaning to watch. There's a lot of shows I've been meaning to watch. I have so many subscriptions to different video streaming services that I barely watch any of those things. Also, when I go on the bus in to and from work, I decide to do other things like catch up listening on my podcast as opposed to watching a YouTube video or watching a Netflix series. Okay, continuing on though. Back to the essay. Imagine a world in which everything people do, they do because they want to, because they are personally invested in bringing it about. For any boss who has struggled to motivate indifferent employees, the idea of working with people who are equally invested in the same projects sounds utopian. But this isn't proof that nothing wouldn't get done without bosses and salaries. It just shows how work saps us of initiative. Excuse me. Let's say your job never injures, poisons, or sickens you. Let's also take it for granted that the economy doesn't crash and takes your jobs and savings with it, and no one who gets a worse deal than you managed to to hurt or rob you. You can still be sure that you won't be downsized. Nowadays, nobody works for the same employer his whole life. You work somewhere for a few years until they let you go for someone younger and cheaper, or outsource your jobs overseas. You can break your back to prove you're the best in the field and still end up coming out to dry. Side note, this is very true for a lot of industries like the video game industry. Just turnover is terrible in the video game industry. The average career in the video game industry is 5 years for many different reasons. Independent contractors or also sort of things, or corporations or companies or studios just go belly up many times to no fault of their own. Sometimes it's the corporations themselves, like Activision, just laying off 8% of their workforce, and while the CEOs of those companies will get like severance pay or gives a big bonus, as it were, in the time when they were having record profits. And Lynn was saying in chat, having to have no relationships with other people working because that sounds like hell. Yeah. I have like often I've personally decided to like not really seek out relationships or date that much. Period. I meant new. Oh, you're right. Yeah. Oh, okay. I have to have no new relationships with other people. With others other than okay. Okay. I think I know. I think I know what you mean. Um. I've not like dated much at all or seek out to find like a girlfriend or a partner, all because I decided to just work or do other things, or because I haven't cleaned up my room. Oh, my room's a mess. Maybe I kept my room a mess in order to shield myself from being like possibly hurt from like loss or like rejection. Maybe. Uh. Oh, what was it? I had a thought, but I lost it. But yeah, there's a lot of people who just like but yeah, it's true for like a lot of people, and most people don't like stay at the same place as it were used to be. I may stay at the same place as it were because I'm lucky in a position to have job security, but I'm not paid that much. But even like is some companies, if there's like a slowdown, a downturn, or just like or the crash happens and there's like less work to be done, then there's not only like a lot of people that just get laid off because of downsizing, but a lot of people then also retire. And even though when those people are retired, they still get replaced by someone else who's younger and probably would like get paid less because like they don't have like 20 years like a seniority at the company. So continuing on, finishing up with the rest of the essay, you have to like count on your employees to make a shrewd decision so they can like write your paychecks. They can't just like fiddle the fritter money away, or they won't have to like pay you. But you never know what the shrewdness will turn against you. You're the ones you depend on for your livelihood. Then the ones you depend on for your livelihood didn't get where they are by being sentimental. If you are self-employed, you probably know how fickle the market can be too. What could be real security? Perhaps being part of a long-term community in which people are looked out for each other, a community based on mutual assistance rather than financial incentives. And what is one of the chief like obstacles to building that community today? Work. I mean, I know. Unfortunately, like in the past several years, a lot of like the May Day protests that happen every year in various places in honoring the martyrs of the Haymarket massacre. Sometimes when May Day, May 1st, is on a Wednesday, they plan for the rally or for protests to happen on a Saturday or a Sunday on the weekends because people work. That is unfortunately the sad truth of the situation. They have the May Day protests on May 4th. May the 4th be with you, yes. Continuing on. And back to the essay. Who carry out most of the injustices in histories? Employees? This is not necessary to say that they are responsible. For them. This is not necessary to say that they're responsible for them, as they would be the first to tell you. Does receiving a wage absolves you of responsibility for your actions? Working seems to foster the impression that it does. The Nuremberg defense, I was just following orders, has been the anthem and alibi of millions of employees. This willingness to check one's conscience at the workplace door, to be, in fact, a mercenary, lies at the root of many of the troubles plaguing our species. People have done horrible things without orders, too, but not nearly as many horrible things. Yeah, I agree, Lin. I hate the I'm just doing the job as a reason and other things. I mean, hell. I know some of the people that is customers for the company I work with. Defense contractors. I know some of the horrible things that those defense contractors do. Hell, the whole industry of defense, the fact that defense is an industry means that like they're always going to be wars, because as long as it's profitable for them to be wars, capitalism will never allow there to be peace. Continuing on. You can reason with a person who is like acting for herself. She acknowledges that she's accountable for her decisions. Employees, on the other hand, can do a unimaginable dumb and destructive thing while refusing to think about the consequences. The real problem, of course, isn't employees refusing to take responsibility for their actions. It's the economic system that makes taking responsibility so prohibitively expensive. Employees dump toxic waste into rivers and oceans. Employees slaughter cows and perform experiments on monkeys. Employees throw away trunk loads of food. Employees are destroying the ozone layers. They watch you every move through security cameras. They evict you when you don't pay rent. They imprison you when you don't pay your taxes. They humiliate you when you don't do your homework or show up to work on time. They enter information about your private ride into a credit report and FBI files. They give you speeding tickets and tow your car. The towing the car part, yeah, that's the regular employees that like have to do it because they work for like this like towing company, as it were. Sometimes they help you with your cars in the ditch because of the ice, as it were, or something like that. A lot of times they tow your car because like or you tow your car, repo people as well. Cops are cops though. Cops are crass traders though. I will say that. Continuing on. They administer standardized exams, juvenile detention centers, and lethal injections. Again, back to my previous statements, cops are crass traders. And Linwood said in chat, if only we could unionize tow truck drivers and like get solidarity with them. Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, repo people are independent contractors though, so it's kind of like sad there. Continuing on, the soldiers. Colin lives in chats like we need all cops we need to make all cops sleep in a bed in either in the nether or in Minecraft. I see. And Lynn was saying in the chat as well, which will can be important for protests to control space. Yeah, exactly. Finish off the essay. The soldiers who herd people into the gas chambers were employees. Just like the soldiers occupying Iraq and Afghanistan. Just like the suicide bombers who target them. And they are employees of God and hoping to be paid in paradise. Let's be clear about this. Critiquing work doesn't mean rejecting labor, efforts, ambition, or commitment. It doesn't mean demanding that everything be fun or easy. Fighting against the forces that compel us to work is hard work. Laziness is not the alternative work, though it might be a byproduct of it. The bottom line is simple. All of us deserve to make the most of our potential. As we see fit, and to be masters of our own destinies. Being forced to sell things away to survive is tragic and humiliating. We don't have to live like this. And that is the end of the essay of the Mythology of Work by Crimethinc. I want to make a statement about the soldiers, the soldiers who hurt people in the gas chambers. I think some of those people actually, some of those people, I'll just say some of those people enjoy the jobs. But again, in the Nuremberg defense doesn't. I want to look at okay. Oh yeah, okay. That's an interesting essay. I don't think I'll be able to read that actually on Twitch because of Twitch 2OS. Yeah, it's sadly. Well, that's an interesting essay. I'll probably read it on my own time, since I'm just not going to Yeah, I'm not gonna read that out loud or even read the titles were, because unfortunately I am on Twitch, and Twitch does have this TOS policies as were, and also I think I do have that as command. Let's see if I do. Yes. But also it's in my rules. No, I don't have it as command yet. I probably don't. So please remember to, especially to all the comrades out there as well. Starfleet Regulation 46A. No uncoded messages over open channels. And Twitch and Discord and social medias and Twitter, they're all open channels. So be careful what you say. um, what was I about to say? Soldiers. Soldiers in Iraq and Afghanistan is kind of like they still are responsible for their actions. That's the thing. I think even the movie A Few Good Men had kind of like proved that, because like they were still, those soldiers in A Few Good Men were guilty of the conspiracy to commit the crime that they did, even though they got off on like the other charges, and as it were, because they said they were following orders. They were still responsible for their actions, and that's the same for the soldiers in Iraq and Afghanistan. If they did horrible things in Iraq and Afghanistan, they still are responsible for their actions, as were. But I'm more lenient for soldiers, especially in Iraq and Afghanistan or in the other places, as opposed to like, if 46A only applies to during battles, but I guess you can like call a class war a battle in my account. We're in enemy territory. Twitch is owned by Amazon, Jeff Bezos, Lex Luthor, my feudal lord in Seattle. YouTube and Twitter, Facebook, even Discord, they're all platforms owned by corporations, as it were. So we are in enemy territory, as it were. And yeah, I agree. This class war is like you can say it is a battle as well. It's a political war, but yeah, a class war is still a class war. To finish my point about the soldiers and as it were, they for most part they are offered the ability to get like GI Bill to be paid for the college and something like that. Oh yeah, there's some racing things about the GI Bill they'll learn about too. About how it's kind of like for the white soldiers coming back from World War II, and not so much for the black soldiers. So it's like, oh, that's a terrible thing too. But many soldiers, because I know many trans people actually, that like for the limited economical options that they have for employment for jobs, they need to fight in order for all those resources, as it were. They then went to the armed services, as it were, to do a tour in Iraq or Afghanistan in order to like be able to live. It's more. That still means that they're responsible for their actions, that they're soldiers, but I'm not too hard on soldiers as I am on cops, as it were, because you choose to be a cop, as it were, and you choose to upload the system of oppression that is being a police in the police state, in this carceral state, in this capitalist system, as it were. As a cop, all cops really just protect capital and private property on the capitalism. They don't serve to protect us. Well, a soldier, they're often like it's kind of like what's sitting down saying in BYOB, why do they always send the poor? Because they don't need to draft this one, because they have enough poor people to send with the voluntary army. They'd be able to send them off to like die in another country for oil. Okay, so I'm thinking. So I've streamed for like 2.5 hours. I am going to like take a break to like perform some like self care. But yeah, that's going to be it for the political portion of the stream. I think I am going to continue streaming, but when I come back from break, I'm going to switch up into play a game. I think I'm going to like fire up. You know what? I'm gonna like play more of like a Stardew Valley, because I love relaxing with Stardew Valley, as it were. So I'm gonna like do that. But for everyone else, for those watching the YouTube video, this would be the end of the YouTube video. For those listening to the podcast, be in the podcast, of course. But for the Twitch audience, I'm going to take a break, run 60-second ad break. So this would be a good time to get up and stretch. I need to do that. Top off your drinks. I need to especially I refill things with ice, because like I have the window closed. It's not as hot as it like was last Saturday, but it's still like hot enough. I'm wearing this hoodie. Actually, I mentioned NaztheNeko earlier in the stream. This is actually NaztheNeko's hoodie, so you can get it on like her channel. Yeah, NaztheNeko. You can get it off of her channel from her merch. Is if so, I'm going to like get up and like use the facilities, stretch my legs, rest my voice a little bit, and like refill my drinks. If you haven't eaten something, it's best to do so. If you person take medication, take it. Take your meds. If you're a person that wears binder, or you're a person who tucks, if it's been 8 hours, take that binder off. Or if you're tucking, check yourself, check your body, make sure you're not hurting yourself. And I'm going to switch over to the Be Right Back screen, and I will be right back.